Hello, good morning. Aspire to be a proud to partner with Microsoft to bring you this special Showcase School Insight webinar this month. We are a Microsoft Global Training Partner, and we look forward to hosting these free webinars and workshops for the next couple of months. So if you haven't already been to our registration page, you can find it via our website or go to our posts on Twitter to find out more information. So we're really excited about today. Before we get started, I want to talk about the ongoing mission of Microsoft, and as a global training partner, Aspire to Be helps with that mission, which is founded on the principle that people can do remarkable things when technology is within reach. So Microsoft's mission is to empower every student on the planet to achieve more. We're going to talk about how institutions are doing this with the help of the Education Transformation Framework. A little bit about myself. My name is Dean Garza. So I've been in teaching for over 20 years, and I am a learning technologist with Aspire to Be. I've taught in Wales, England, USA, and Japan. So I've had a lot of fun along the way, and I've got to work with some really outstanding teachers, student teaching training programs and PGC programs in the United States and in England, most recently at UCL and Brunel University. So if you have any questions after the webinar today, or if you just want more details about anything that you heard about and you want to get even more information about how we can help you with that, feel free to contact me about any Microsoft questions that you might have. So I have here some of my contact details. So there's my Twitter and LinkedIn and also my email address. So feel free to look back on the recording and come back to here if you need to contact me or the rest of the Aspire to Be team for any of your needs. Well, what's the agenda today? Well, we're going to start with the Education Transformation Framework, which is the main path to becoming a showcase school. Now, there are some steps along the way, which I'm going to talk about later on, but we're going to start with that because that's really the main impetus and what the background is that's needed to understand how showcase schools work with Microsoft. So I'm going to go through that, and then we're going to have a great presentation from Hannah Matthias from Cardiff and Vale College, and she is going to speak about their showcase college journey. And then lastly, I'm going to go back over some of the details about becoming a showcase school, as well as talk about the Microsoft Educator Center and giving you a Microsoft Innovative Educator badge for attending today's webinar. So thank you, first of all, for attending. And as well, at the end, we're going to be giving a 50% off code for all Microsoft education courses on Aspire Ed, which is Aspire to Be's learning platform. This code will get you half off the already low prices on our website. And as well, be giving out feedback forms about today's webinar, and we will be choosing randomly any educator that fills it out and give you a free voucher for your Microsoft Certified Educator exam. And I'll talk about why that's such a great deal, as well as how that will actually help your school if they choose to go down the Showcase School or Showcase College pathway. Well, let's talk about the Education Transformation Framework. What exactly is it? Well, the Education Transformation Framework enables deep discussions around what's possible. It aims to bring everyone on board to create a holistic plan and roadmap that looks across all aspects of your school. And as we know, the current climate calls for new ways to adapt to reaching our students at home and in the classroom. So the need for blended learning has never been higher. So Microsoft has the tools and this framework to help you start that journey, as well as create a true hybrid learning experience. The Education Transformation Framework has been developed to help aspiring schools that use Microsoft, are looking to use Microsoft education tools to take the next steps in addressing the specific needs of the 21st century learner. So if you can see here that there are many parts to this framework, among them are leadership and policy, intelligent environments, technology blueprint, and modern teaching and learning. Let's take a look at a few in depth. So when we look at them all as a framework, we can recognize how this transformation can help unleash students' potential. So before I go into each of these areas a bit more, just want to talk about the criteria for becoming a showcase school. And also, I will review this later on and we'll go a bit more into it after a presentation. But for now, a commitment to transform your school using the education transformation framework, creating a culture of learning and growth, personalized learning and inclusion, future ready skills, showing data that drives decisions, and learning impact is enabled by Microsoft solutions. Now, many schools already show these qualities in their school improvement plans and also are currently using them now to get through the current situation imposed on us by COVID 19. Now, the last bit, enabling Microsoft solution, is probably the one that is most unique to this framework, along with the interlocking elements of the framework as a whole. So let's start with leadership and policy. Well, starting from the top down is always a successful formula whenever developing any change in any school. So, embracing a culture of exchange with flexible policies and processes that enable data driven decisions and delivers an autonomous teaching and learning environment for students and educators is the core principle behind this area of the education transformation framework. Intelligent environments. So, creating collaboration and flexible learning spaces, enabling energy efficient ways of working, and providing responsive and coordinated security to keep schools safe. So, with Microsoft, this is very easy to do, especially with the emphasis on security. And technology blueprints for schools. What this means is a reliable, responsive, data driven technology environment, empowering leaders, educators, and learners to achieve more every day in the modern classroom. And with any school that gives access to Office 365 to their students and staff, they will see this as a driving force very quickly. Modern teaching and learning. So, flexible, future ready skills, teaching curriculum that enables educators to personalize learning for students, creating a more tailored educational experience. And as we know now, especially the aspect of personalizing that learning is going to have to take some changes involving hybrid learning. Well, I'm going to go back over the education transformation framework later on and go into more depth a bit about how to go about your journey and taking your first steps to a showcase school or a college. But I want to introduce our presenter today from Cardiff and Vale College. Hannah Matthias is an e-learning manager, has done some wonderful things, and she's going to share how Cardiff and Vale started their path towards showcase college status. Hannah, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Hannah, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And if you don't mind sticking around afterwards, and I'll ask you a few questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay,
You'll have
great.
to excuse my voice because I've had a bit of a cold over the weekend, so I'm hoping it'll hold out through the presentation. I've been asked by Aspire to Be to talk through how we've got to our showcase status as a college. The college showcase status is a reasonably new thing that Microsoft has introduced. So it's great to be involved in what Microsoft are trying to push. So I'm going to start off by talking about me. I've been working within the digital learning field for about 17 years or so now, starting off doing a master's in e-learning and then supporting the FE and HE sector with it, working for JISC, and then moving into roles within colleges, actually implementing this type of stuff as e-learning managers. So I started in Cardiff and Vale College about 4 years ago. Cardiff and Vale College is based in Cardiff and Barry, and we have multiple sites. We have about 20,000 learners or so, and they are within the FE sector, HE sector, work-based learning, and we also cover adult education as well, community learning. So we've got quite a wide range of needs and age groups of learners that are digital strategy has to support. So I'm going to have a look at what it was like when I first started. So I use quite a bleak picture because it kind of felt like that at the time. When I started, there was nobody doing the role, so I had to start from scratch, which can be a really good thing. So you can put your own stamp on it. But there was also a lot of negativity from staff when I started. That whole fear factor around technology replacing them. And it was just generally down to communication. People weren't really sure what my role was going to do and what impact that would have on them. So yeah, it was kind of a strange starting point, but we've turned that corner now, which is really, really good, and it's very positive, and staff are really, really keen to try new things. So that's really brilliant. But yeah, when I started, there was no strategy in place whatsoever, and the college was just using Moodle as their virtual learning environment. And from looking at it when I started, it was quite patchy. There was some really keen teachers using it and using it really well. The rest of the staff were just using it as a dumping ground for their files. There was no thought really into how that was structured or the pedagogy around that. So that was one of the first things that kind of needed changing quite quickly. And Office 365 had been rolled out, but not many people were using it at all. So that's where my kind of Microsoft kind of journey started, I suppose, that I had to investigate the potential of what Office 365 could bring to the education sector, and how we could make better use of it, not just for teaching and learning either, for the business support side of things. So one of the first things I did was develop a strategy. We needed to know where we were headed. We kind of had a baseline of where we were, but we needed to improve things and plan things more effectively. So that involved working quite closely with the IT director in the college. We work extremely closely to make sure that both our strategies and plans are aligned. And yeah, we formed we call it a technology enhanced learning, so TEL group, to help formulate this strategy and put a number of things in place. So what we've done, we initially started with a strategy which was about probably about 3 or 4 pages long, and knowing what I'm like with reading strategies, so that I just felt that was too long and staff wouldn't read it. So it was a bit pointless having a strategy that people aren't going to read. So we decided to change tact a bit and put it into a one pager document that was really visual and easy to follow. So we've got really clear outlines of what we're trying to achieve and KPIs based on the 3-year plan. So to formulate that strategy, we used a number of different things. Data was pretty key, like Dean was saying in the Microsoft framework. We used a number of JISC surveys, like the discovery tool, to inform us on what our skill level was with staff, and also student experience tools, so we could see exactly what our students felt they were receiving at the college. Did we need to improve things digitally for them? So that data was really useful for putting together our strategy. And we also made use of the transformation framework as well, which was really helpful. It gives you a clear sections to work through, and it's useful for people in the higher levels in your college to get their head around what they need to put in place for these types of strategies to be successful. So the first thing that we needed to sort out was infrastructure. Couldn't put any of what we planned in our TEL strategy in place without sorting out the infrastructure first of all. We have multiple sites, one of which is a brand new building, so has really good connectivity, Wi-Fi everywhere. Rooms are pretty flexible, and it's pretty easy to start implementing what we had in place for the health strategy. But we have a number of different other sites, like we have a automotive building, and we have building services, we have an aerospace building. These are quite large workshop-based buildings. They're old. They don't have Wi-Fi coverage in some of the rooms, or it's very patchy. And so we knew that we needed to bring things up to scratch, so that everyone's on a level playing field. So we wanted to have a seamless experience for staff, that no matter which room they go into, they know exactly what they're going to get, and that they can plan effectively for their lesson delivery. So that was a big challenge to sort out, and luckily with some Welsh Government funding through within the further education sector, there's this new funding stream called the Digital 2030, and there was some money that came available specifically for infrastructure upgrades. So that was one of the things that we've done quite recently, was to improve that. So we've now got Wi-Fi coverage across all sites, and we've even got devices now for staff. What we felt was some of the PCs at the front of the classroom, there was varying ages and capabilities of those machines, but also we wanted to move away from the teacher being tied to the front of the classroom. So the only way we could do that was by providing staff the ability to do that by having their own device. And we're providing them with docking stations now at the front, so that they can dock to the front if they need to, or they can screencast to the screen or to the projector. So they've got a bit more flexibility in the classroom. The other thing we're looking at, we're rolling out currently, is bring your own device for students, but I'll go into that a bit later on. But that's one of our things on our strategy to help with infrastructure, so we can invest in the network, enable to people to connect their devices up to. So that's something I'll touch on later. So one of the first things that happened to me once I was working at Cardiff Vale, we had a visit from the head of education at Microsoft. That was Ian Fordham at the time. And he'd been picking up on some of the work that we were doing. Ian was originally from the FE sector, and realised that Microsoft wasn't supporting FE as well as the schools. So we were chatting about what we were doing, and his idea about bringing in the showcase college status, because he felt that FE is a bit different to schools, and it needed to be supported. So that visit was kind of quite pivotal at the time. I was quite new in the college, but it enabled me to raise the profile of the digital learning strategy need to the executive team. So that was a really key moment. And from then on, we had better engagement with Microsoft directly. So we would get visits up to their showcase classroom for our staff and for our leaders to go and see exactly what was kind of going on in my head, but explained in a real situation, so they could see exactly what I meant, which is really, really useful. So if you do have opportunity to go up to their showcase classroom, I would definitely recommend it, because it does bring people on board, and it was really useful. So the other thing that we've been doing is, for a long time actually, is Microsoft certifications. So when I started, the college had just set up a Visual Academy. So they partnered with a company called Visual, and the idea of the academy was to provide Microsoft certifications and more current apprenticeships for employers. So my team kind of got involved with the certification side of things. So we were providing training and the actual exams for the apprenticeships. So they are in all the different office packages, and some more technical certifications as well, called the MTAs. So what I found was that it was a big opportunity for us to upskill our staff and support our strategy as well. So what we started doing is promoting these certifications to our staff, because we found from doing our surveys that a lot of staff were not very confident with some office packages, which is particularly useful for some roles like the administrative roles within the college, and business support roles, and for just generally for staff to become more confident in using these different technologies. And we've also rolled it out for students too. And I'll touch on that a bit later with our student digital leader role. One of the main things we have been pushing quite heavily is the Microsoft Certified Educator exam. So we have a number of those in college now. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's about 30-ish, which is pretty good. So the idea of that exam, it's not too much around the technology, it's around pedagogy that you need to think about when you're trying to make use of the technologies. So that's the way we try and approach things in our college. It's not about the technology, it's how the technology can enhance your learning. So we're trying to get as many staff as we can through this exam. And all our staff digital leaders have been through that, and I'll go through what they are in a few slides' time. But the certifications have become a lot more popular, particularly amongst our IT staff. They've become quite engaged in this now and get quite competitive about getting their exams. There's quite a lot of technical exams, the MTAs, which complement some of their delivery. And there's some now new fundamental exams, which are more up to date and more in line to what employers require. So yeah, there's lots of scope for these certifications. I would recommend getting involved in this if you can. You can set up as your own centre to do these exams, or find out who your local centre is to get people through these exams. It does help get buy-in for staff training, that they actually receive something for the effort. So moving on to the Microsoft Educator community, this is something I fell upon really after speaking to the head of Microsoft. I really wasn't aware of it before. It's kind of like a little hidden gem that has loads and loads of great courses for staff and even your learners to complete if they want to in their own time. So we've kind of changed tact with our training because we were a very small team. At the start, it was just me and one other team member. So to cover 20,000 staff, it's a bit impossible. So we're trying to be a bit smarter with our time and promoting all these great online resources that staff can go through in their own time when they're free. Because I don't know what it's like where you are when you're putting on training. It's really hard to capture everybody. Everyone's teaching at different times, or they've got other commitments. So we're trying to get staff to take a bit more ownership in their own professional development, and when they have free time, to dip into the Microsoft Educator community and go through what they want to do. So it's more bespoke to what they want, exactly what we tell them to do in the classroom with their students, rather than a one-size-fits-all. And they get digital badges at the end of it. So that there's some great resources on there. And we've embedded that into some other pathways that I'll go into in a bit. But on this site, you'll find some Microsoft pathways that staff can go through, called the Microsoft Innovative Educator, which I believe Dean said you'll be getting a badge for at the end of this. So basically, Normally, staff only have to complete roughly about 2 courses, 500 points each, and they get a Innovative Educator badge. And then there's a next step up called the Innovative Educator Expert, but you have to apply for that one. It's an annual thing, and you have to basically prove why you think you're worthy of getting an expert status. But if you do get it, you then become part of the expert community, which gives you access to a number of workshops. You also get the opportunity to help on the Microsoft stand and pet shows and things like that, and you get to try out new products coming out. So there's lots of benefits to becoming part of that. The main benefit for me has been the networking and meeting other people who are trying to achieve the same thing. It's great for sharing ideas and learning from each other. So currently within the college, we've probably got about 70%-ish, I reckon, MIEs. So we've done a lot of training with staff to get them to that status. So they've all been working through some courses online to get that. I'm trying to get all the staff MIEs. So that's my aim. We've got this year 17 Microsoft Innovative Educator Experts. And that's a range for teaching staff. We've even got some of our library staff and support staff that status too, which is brilliant. But one of the good things about being at MIE is I had the opportunity to go to Singapore to their education conference. So you can have the same opportunity too as an MIE, the expert status. So every year you get to apply, and they choose people to go. They represent the UK. It's normally about 6 or 7 people go each year. I think this year they're making it available for everybody because it's going to be online due to everything going on. But yeah, a massive opportunity, the best CPD I've ever been on. You're surrounded by some really inspirational educators from around the world, and you just learn so much. So just even going to Singapore was amazing. So yeah, if you get the opportunity to apply to be an MIE, go for it. You've got nothing to lose, and it's really simple to do. You're probably already at that status anyway, you just haven't applied yet. So what we've implemented in our college is called Tell Journey. So the idea around this was to help with staff development. What we were finding is we were doing a one-size-fits-all approach to staff development, only on inset days. And it wasn't meeting the needs of staff. We were getting feedback from staff saying, well, I've already done this. This is too basic for me, or this is too high level. I need to do something a bit more introductory. Or people who are part-time couldn't attend. So what I decided to do was put together different journeys for staff based on their roles. So we've got now a Tell Journey for leaders, and includes managers as well. We've got a Tell Journey for lecturers, and we have a Tell Journey for support staff. And what we've done recently, one of our staff within the library has put together their own Tell Journey for the library staff because they felt that theirs needed to be a bit more bespoke for their staff requirements, which I was perfectly happy about. The more people we get on board with improving their digital skills, the better. So the idea about these Tell Journeys is that they're individual to the roles. So the lecturing staff obviously has more pedagogy-based stuff compared to business support. And the leadership ones have more of the leadership courses that are on the Mac than the teaching ones. So the Tell Journeys are made up of just surveys. So that I mentioned earlier about the discovery tool, which basically looks at your digital capability needs, but then it continues then on to doing courses on the Microsoft Educator community. It also includes the Microsoft exams. It also includes some Moodle stuff. So we're still using Moodle at the moment, but this was slightly changed now because a lot more staff are using Teams. So we'll be evaluating how they're using Teams as well as Moodle, or both. And basically they work their way through the journey. There's 2 steps within the journey. There's a TEL Explorer badge that they can get. So they have to submit evidence that they've met that criteria. Excuse me. Which my team review. And then they move on to the next step, which is the TEL Pioneer badge. So, and again, we review the evidence for that. But the point of this is that we're trying to gamify the staff training aspect of things, so that they get these badges, and then each term we look at which department has got the most amount of badges, and we reward them with an away day. So this has been pretty successful. Staff really like the badges and get quite competitive. So and it makes it really clear to staff where they need to go and where they need to develop. What we found that staff were quite confused about what things they needed to work on, or where they needed to go to work on them. So the MEC is great, but it's quite big. So if you've only just started with that, it's quite daunting to know where to start. So we've given them some suggestions to start off with. And the TEL journeys themselves are interactive documents, so they just click on them and they can get access to what they need when they need it. The next thing that we've put in place are staff digital leaders. So these are staff within departments in the college. We have 13 of them currently, some within the library department as well, the support staff. So they can train those staff up to support our learners. They only get an hour a week currently to support their teams, but we felt that they were better placed being in the departments, as they know the staff in their teams a lot better than we do, and they're with them a lot more than we are. And obviously, like I said before, we had to be a bit smarter because we are only small. So we've put these digital leaders in place to help drive our TEL strategy. So there's some requirements that they have to do, and some KPIs that they have to meet. So as a digital leader, you have to get your MIEE, the expert status, and you have to achieve your Microsoft Certified Educator certification. You have to be active on Twitter. And if you are meeting all these kind of requirements, there's a few others as well, then we provide them with a Microsoft Surface Go to help them with training staff. And that's proving really successful. Obviously now, if they've got some other KPIs to meet, particularly with more support requirements for blended learning and remote delivery. So yeah, it's been incredibly successful, and that's why we're continuing with their role. That they help a great deal, just generally every day, but we also bring them in when we're doing training events as well to help with stuff. So moving on, we also have a makerspace. For those of you who don't know what a makerspace is, it's a central resource which is meant to help with collaboration, exploring, playing, learning to fail, building resilience, and things like that. So, but using technologies, the latest technologies, and also bringing in an element of craft and art as well. So we have one in main one is set up in our city centre campus, but we've also now got extra equipment so we can do pop-ups across all sites. And we funded this through some Welsh Government funding. The idea of this came about because my team didn't have any equipment, so we used to have to beg and borrow where we could, and we didn't have a space to do training. And I don't know what it's like where you're based, but it's always really hard to find a room that's available when you need it. So instead of setting up a normal training room, I was doing a bit of research and thought, well, actually, these makerspaces seem like a better approach. So what we've done with ours is that it's not just about using new technology. It's about how my team can support staff to try these new technologies in a safe place where they don't feel stressed and anxious about trying them, but also that they can try new pedagogies as well. So it's kind of similar to the Donaldson's approach to curriculum design. We try and do cross-curricular based workshops. So we work really closely with the staff and do bespoke sessions on a particular topic. For instance, we had some psychology students come up and they were looking at schizophrenia. So we worked with them and we had a number of different tables set up, and it was like a rotation thing going on. The staff member becomes a facilitator, so they're not actually teaching as such. You just provide the scaffolding for the learners. So the learners had to watch a 360 video on some headsets to experience what it was like to have schizophrenia, which was amazing. It really brought home to students to experience what that is like. And then they had to do some research around how schizophrenia is portrayed in the press and in the media, and around the medication that is required to help with schizophrenia. And then what they had to do then is put together like a script to do a news report on schizophrenia. And they had to do that in front of a green screen, which we recorded. And then they had a video at the end of it. And it was a really successful session when the teacher then did some feedback at the end of the year. This was the one session that the students remembered and had the greatest impact on their learning. So it's been very, very popular across the board, even with areas that haven't engaged with us before, particularly people like engineering and automotive. They've been coming over and using things like our HoloLens to load up 3D engines and things like that, and they can walk around them and break them apart and actually see the workings of them and things like that. So there's loads of scope for us within that space, and helps staff try things without being scared, which has been the main thing. The other thing that we've been working on at the moment is how we can make this available online, because currently we can't use all this equipment with students without getting close to them. So I've challenged my team currently to make the makerspace online. So watch this space, and we'll be sharing what we're going to be doing with the students online to keep that buzz going. But hopefully we'll be getting back to it and driving things forward again. Then we've also put in place some student digital leaders, and that's kind of come hand in hand with the makerspace. My team never used to be student facing. We were always in an office. But since having the makerspace, we've become very much student facing, based in the library. And we also work in the library as well. We have a little desk set up. So staff come up to us, students come up to us all the time. So we set up this student digital leader group. And the idea of them is to help develop their digital skills. We get them doing courses on the Mac, and we get them doing certifications as well. But we also let them have that space and creativity with the Makerspace kit, that they can set up their own clubs. So they've set up coding clubs, and come up with lots of different project ideas as well. So they're currently working on putting together a podcast of different programs around technology, which will be really exciting. But last year they've been involved in some of the projects that we've been doing, like setting up our own Cardiff and Vale radio show, like a podcast. We have a little radio station that they figured out how to use, and they've been basically being the producers and setting everything up and making sure everything's working okay. They've been working with external speakers on that as well, like some BBC presenters and lots of like high profile people. So it's been a great experience for them, putting lots of different skills in place, not only digital but soft skills too. Excuse me. One of the other things they were helping us with was we did a roadshow with Jason Mohammed, which was all around developing journalism skills with our sports academies. So we realised that our sports academy students may want to go, after they've had their sport careers, into journalism, or they may be interviewed as sportsmen or sports people. So we wanted to give them that experience and expertise, so they're not kind of starstruck or don't know what to say when they put a microphone in front of them. So we did a number of different days, one at the Cardiff City Stadium, one at the Cardiff Blues Stadium, and the other at the Swalek Cricket Stadium. So we covered lots of different of our sports teams, but our digital leaders helped not only with the audio recording, but with video as well. So we kind of became like a little TV production team, which was brilliant. And a lot of our student digital leaders now have decided that they don't want to continue with what their previous career path was going to be, and they now want to get into the creative industries. So it's been really successful getting them involved in lots of different extracurricular activities too. So we've set up a TELS strategy group over the last probably 2 years, I suppose. We felt that there was a real need to get the exec team a bit more fully on board with what was going on. And that's kind of really helped lately with everything that's happened with going into lockdown. I suppose you don't really appreciate it at the time, the amount of background work that you've put in to suddenly shift online. Really is quite difficult if you haven't got everything in place. So it was quite seamless for us because we've already put the legwork in and have the buy-in from the top, which has really helped. So what this group is made up of the exec team. We meet relatively regularly, a couple of times a term, and we review our KPIs for the strategies. Although I'm going to have to rewrite them because I think we met all our KPIs when we went into lockdown, which was it was good, but they need upgrading now. But we look at what projects we've got going on and what needs to be put in place for them to be successful. So it really does help if you have got that buy-in to help drive things across the organisation, so that it's not just coming from one lone soul. It does need a top-down approach, but we also make use of our students too with that bottom-up approach. We make use of our learner voice team, so we get feedback all the time from our student body to make sure that we're meeting their needs. So that's really important as well. We've also made use of the transformation framework, as Dean talked about earlier. So to become a showcase college or school, you need to demonstrate that you've gone through the framework and how far you are through that framework. So it's a really good document and workshop tool really that you can do with your exec team to highlight to them what they should be thinking about. So it's not just you as like an e-learning manager or a digital leader with all the knowledge, it needs to be spread out across everybody. It's everybody's responsibility nowadays that it needs to be embedded across the whole culture. So yeah, I'd say it's a really important thing that you can start looking through, see where you are, and start working your way to the top. But I'd say you're probably never going to be finished. It's always changing. Things are always moving forwards, and particularly technology. And like I said, with everything going on at the moment, pedagogies are changing all the time. Currently in our college, when we are like some of the staff are in, some staff are working at home. So learners are having a real kind of a mixed approach to their delivery. It's very blended. So whether they're in the classroom with the teacher some days or they're at home, but we're also having students remoting into a face-to-face classroom. So that's something that we'd never thought would happen for a long time. But our strategy has accelerated very, very quickly in the last few months. So you can see how you can never really quite be right at the end of the transformation. Everything's always changing. Data is becoming better and more effective, and more dynamic to meet your needs as well. So one of the things we're rolling out currently, we did a pilot of bring your own device with our A-level group last year, which kind of sets in good stead really for the sudden rollout for bring your own device thing that we had to do back in March. So luckily our staff have devices, but what we found when we suddenly went to remote delivery in March, not all our learners had devices. So we managed to provide our learners with devices through making use of them from our libraries and from laptop trolleys that were just going to be left stagnant while we were working from home. So we managed to get those out to students that really needed them. But we've also been working with a company called Academia to provide a store for students to buy their own devices that's not financially linked to the college. It's totally with the learner, and they can choose from a range of 4 devices that they can then bring into college. It's all been set up for them. It's got insurance and warranties and covers and everything like that. So the idea is that they can be online accessing the learning from wherever, whether that's at home or from within the classroom or from within just a general learning space in the college. So we want to be getting to that space where all our learners have a device. They don't have to buy it through the store. They can buy it elsewhere if they want to, but it won't be as supported as the ones that come through the store. So that's where we're at the moment with the devices. Most of the devices we have in college and through the store are Windows 10 devices. We do have some Mac devices, particularly for our creative courses, and that's not a problem. All the Microsoft stuff runs on Mac anyway, so it's not an issue in terms of getting access to what they need. So I've touched on blended learning already. We were already delivering blended learning prior to COVID-19. We're part of the Blended Learning Consortium, where we can get access to a centrally funded content that a lot of colleges buy into. So we've been promoting that with staff to get them to be delivering a more flipped blended learning approach to their learning. So we've already been pushing that for a number of years, but it's obviously changed quite a lot in the past 7 months. So March was purely remote delivery, but now we're back in college. It's a blended approach. So we're heavily supporting staff in terms of moving from a emergency remote delivery model, which is what they were doing before, to a more planned blended learning approach. So we are running lots of workshops around learning design, getting them to think about what needs to be put in place, not just for a particular lesson, but learning design for their whole course, and how they can keep engagement going, how can they assess their learners, how accessibility is incorporated, and lots of things like that, particularly engagement. For our learners who are starting now, they don't have the relationships with their cohort of learners that the last year's learners did. They wouldn't have built those relationships up. So engagement is really key to keep them from dropping out of their courses. So we're currently working with the Open University on a project to develop a number of workshops for schools and colleges to help with this blended learning delivery. And we're also working on another project, which is funded by Welsh Government, as a collaborative project with a number of other colleges to look at the pedagogies around blended learning. And we're also looking at an advanced version of that as well. So that'll be quite exciting to see how we can learn from what people are doing and put some training in place to support our staff through this journey. So we've got some quite innovative projects going on at the moment, again funded by this pot of money called Digital 2030 through Welsh Government. There's a pot of money for innovative projects, and we have two of them. One of them is a personalised learning bot for English and Maths GCSE. So the idea around this is that GCSE outcomes aren't particularly great. Those learners who are generally doing resits have had a bad experience within education. So why continue to teach them in the same way? So we came up with an idea of having a bot to support the teacher. It's not replacing the teacher. So the idea is that the teacher marks an assessment for a learner, and the bot sends back the learner with a specific resource to help them with their development. So what we've done is we've broken down resources quite small into specification points. So what we found from talking to our Maths and English GCSE staff is that currently they were just pointing them towards like a whole resource or a whole lesson, whereas a learner might only need to develop one specification point. So we're going through the process of breaking down their resources into small little chunks that meet that specification point. So the bot can return just that particular resource. So the learner doesn't get disheartened or agitated by having to go through a whole resource that they don't need to upskill on. They just look at that specific specification point that they need to address. Generally, those resources are PowerPoints or video. And the students get badges for engaging with the bot. The bot is integrated into Teams as well. So they get little notifications and reminders to complete the activity. And then the back end side of things, the teacher can see all the data of who's achieving all those specification points. So they can see the whole cohort and how they're developing over the year. It's really clear to them what areas need working on for each class or individual learner. So that's an exciting project, which the bot has been built now, and we're just rolling it out to staff to start using with the students. The other project we're working on is Tell Hubs. So this kind of got delayed a bit due to lockdown. But the idea of it is kind of like the next step from the maker spaces. It's more of an independent approach to changing pedagogies. So once the staff have used the makerspace and feel confident of using these new technologies and pedagogies, they can make use of these hubs. So these hubs are flexible. They have tables with wheels on, so they can change the layout. The layout is really important to help engage with and complement the pedagogy. So more collaboration, more learner-led activities, so they can work on projects or problems. The type of technology we've got in there are HoloLens 2s and Oculus Quests, interactive board like TVs with video conferencing capabilities. And now that the students have their own devices too, they can make use of these in that space. So the teacher becomes that facilitator role, and the students lead on what they need to do. So that's what's being pushed out. I think we've got 4 of those going out across the college. So we'll be training staff around using basically the ethos of the Microsoft Certified Educator courses. That is all around collaboration, real world problems, and things like that. So that's quite exciting. And that's it at the moment. So we've achieved our showcase status now for the 3rd year in a row, which is brilliant. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone's got any.
Well, we did have a couple of questions on the chat. I've just answered some, talking about primary school in general, but I've got some questions for you actually, because that was such a great presentation. I know those of us that have been to Cardiff and Vale and also have met your staff kind of take it for granted that they have these capabilities and they're actually using them.
Yeah.
So I see the insight about the journey, about how you've come about to where you are. So that's really helpful. But I'm going to take it a step back real quick. And I always start with this question. Is how you and your staff are doing at the moment with everything going on. How are you feeling, and how's the overall feeling in the school?
At the start of lockdown, I think it was quite stressful. My staff were really, really busy trying to support staff to get them online and using Microsoft Teams all the time, whereas some of the staff weren't using Microsoft Teams. So there was quite a quick learning curve for those staff. Particularly, lots of staff hadn't used the meetings feature. They may have used Teams, but not really for them using meetings for teaching and learning. So we had to put lots of things in place to support the staff. But I was really surprised at how quickly staff got on board with this and were doing amazing things, particularly those staff who were quite reluctant before to engage with technology. They really surprised me, and it was amazing what some of the staff were doing. We had some staff creating like virtual crime scenes and things like that on Second Life. It was quite incredible, some of the stuff they were coming up with. There's some real creativity going on, even through lockdown, which is amazing. I think generally at the moment, where everybody has been, I think within education, it's changed quite a lot in the last 7 months, whereas teachers could quite happily carry on as they always have done, whereas we've all had to shift and have to become really adaptable really quickly. So that's a real good skill that I think we've all had to develop, that you can't expect everything to be the same all the time, and that you have to plan for things that you don't know what's going to happen. So I think that's those skill sets that staff have had to learn, and the students too. It will help education become a lot better, I think.
Yeah, and I just wanted to go back as well, because you mentioned a lot of things, and there was some, I think, little topics that might help some other, not only just FE colleges, but also primary and secondary as they're going along this journey. And one of those is you talked about addressing different age groups with your digital strategy. So one question is, what do you think the biggest difference, or maybe the key area you have to focus in when addressing that?
I suppose there's the different types of technology that you use. Like our younger learners definitely prefer video a lot more, whereas the older learners are quite happy doing a bit more reading. It depends on the level of what they're studying as well. So if you've got HE learners, you would probably expect them to do a bit more background reading. But with younger, lower level learners, they need a lot more support. And and classroom management as well is very different online. I know from speaking to some staff that behaviour has actually improved since going online than in the classroom, which is quite interesting in itself. I suppose it's kind of people aren't bouncing off each other in the same way as they would if they were face to face. So yeah, I think every teacher's doing it differently. They're making use of like classroom class notebook so they can differentiate their materials to the requirements of the student. Yeah, and you making use of the chat feature. I think the younger learners engage quite a lot on the chat. Older learners may find that a bit strange. They may be more used to doing email or the more traditional delivery. So yeah, it's a real mixed bag, and everyone's kind of doing it their own way, which is great. So I suppose that's where these projects that we're currently going to be working on, we'll be pulling all that information together to get some really good case studies to help other people what actually works well for different levels and different age groups. Yeah, but it's particularly our ESOL learners, so our English as second language learners. They've been really engaging with online learning. They've been doing some great stuff like going into breakout rooms and collaborating on PowerPoint presentations and using video calls and things like that. So I suppose the technology helps get around that language barrier as well.
Excellent. Well, the other thing that kind of popped in my head as you were presenting, because it becoming a showcase school and getting that status, it must be attractive in terms of not only giving, I guess, that sense of confidence to your staff, but have you seen that it's affected maybe potential staff and also your onboarding process?
Yeah, so it's helping with the recruitment, particularly with apprenticeships, because we're providing access to certifications, particularly around the more IT computing based apprenticeships. So they get access to do some of the certifications that a lot of employers require. So yeah, it's a really good marketing tool as well. So we've been doing a lot around that with a marketing team to help promote what are the benefits that learners will get from coming to our college over other colleges. So it's not just about recognizing where you are as an organization. It's also raising that awareness outside to potential learners of what they can get out of the college from having that status as well.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be even for current staff as well. It's got to be nice to be able to say that you work at a showcase school, so or college. So that's great.
Yeah,
Um, one of the things I know you talked about, the ETF and the education transformation framework. It's not always complete. It's always evolving, especially right now.
yeah.
One of the things that stood out was the level of autonomy that the college was able to keep while still implementing it. Could you kind of touch on that? I know you talked about the TEL groups, but did you feel that you weren't there wasn't any specific parameters locked in? It was kind of it was kind of a set framework, but it wasn't unlocking you into anything in particular. Is that
No, not at all. It just gives you like a steer. I suppose it's more beneficial for people that don't really know about digital learning. Generally, if you work in that environment, you kind of have an idea of what you need to do. But the whole point of doing the framework is that you need buy-in from everybody. So it's good to have that extra voice, I suppose, telling people, not just always coming from me. Oh, we need to do this. We need to do this. It, executive teams and leaders like frameworks. They like having things to follow to ensure that they're covering things that they need to cover. So it's a really good way of getting your exec team or senior leadership team fully on board, so that they know that they can say, okay, yeah, we have covered everything that we need to cover. And it does take a bit of the workload off you as well, because it can, if you are seen as the technology expert in your organization, it's quite easily that everything just gets chucked onto you to achieve. Whereas that's not the whole point of this transformation journey. It's meant to be, it's embedded. Everything involves digital these days,
Yeah.
and everyone has to take responsibility for that.
Well, last question, and this one is particularly about the ETF and how it's been most impacted with COVID-19. And like you touched on how things have changed in respect to students accessing content, and also staff having to really embrace that blended learning even more so, not being in the classroom at all times. On the framework, which of those aspects do you think it's affected the most, or maybe it's more than one area?
I think two areas really. It's infrastructure. So we've had to roll out devices to staff and to students really quickly, and also the teaching and learning. So that change of delivery model has been the biggest thing that has changed. The strategy itself hasn't really changed. It's just accelerated where we wanted to be in 3 years' time. So we kind of achieved that 3-year journey in the space of like a few weeks, which is quite crazy. I think we managed to achieve it relatively pain-free. But yeah, it's more the adaptability of the delivery models for the teaching staff. That's been the biggest thing that's had to change.
Yeah.
But they did it really, really well. And then they've also had to change again for September, because it's become more blended rather than just purely online. So yeah, luckily, I think we were quite lucky that we were quite far along that journey through that transformation before lockdown. So we had the infrastructure, like the backbone of everything in place. We were already using Office 365 quite heavily. People were already familiar with things like Teams and the rest of Office 365 apps. So it wasn't completely new to them. It was more around like safeguarding issues, like how do you cover things like that? How do you ensure you're meeting the accessibility needs of all your learners? And changing your delivery models so that you are doing more collaboration online. How do you do activities online? How do you assess online through doing, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous delivery? So those terms are quite new to a lot of people. So there's been a lot of upskilling around, you don't have to do everything live. There was a lot of expectation at the start that people thought that they had to continue with the same timetable. So it's about managing everyone's expectations and communicating that effectively, that no, you have to rethink things. You don't have to do it all live. You can provide activities offline for them to do, and then just have catch-up sessions or do live lessons if you want to. But yeah, it's just making sure everybody knows what they're able to do, and it doesn't have to be too difficult. It's just about thinking about it in a different way.
Yeah. Well, we just got a question in on the chat, Hannah, if you don't mind. And I know that your college has had experience with this. So someone's asking, getting schools and colleges to communicate between themselves for lessons. So in other words, getting help from other experts outside of your school and outside of your college. Now, I know
Yeah.
that your college uses tools within Office 365 for that. Did you want to talk about any particular tool in general that would help with that question?
I know my team use Twitter a lot. If we're stuck, we don't know the answers to everything. I use Twitter heavily to find out what's going on around me, not just generally locally, worldwide. There's a lot of potential to share and learn from other people. But also when you're a showcase college or school, you become part of a network you get part of a team that's set up so you can ask other people within there. Also, they do the same as if you're an MIE as well. So there's lots of networks out there that you can tap into. Just don't be afraid to ask, I suppose.
Yeah.
People are very happy to help you and share.
Yeah, and they'll pop on a Teams or Skype with you whenever they want. I've always
Yeah,
found
exactly. Yeah.
that. Well, man, I want to thank you today for your presentation. I'm going to go over a bit more about the criteria, but again, if I know that we can't visit Cardiff and Vale College at the moment, but if you get a chance in the future, really take a look. In fact, and I think there was an event that Cardiff and Vale was going to hold that was canceled because of COVID. I think it was back in March, around there. So they're always holding events, and they are very heavily
Yeah.
involved with Microsoft Education.
Yeah.
So
Happy to help anybody that's got any queries.
please get in touch with Hannah. You can easily find her on Twitter. I know you're on LinkedIn as well, and then also Cardiff and Vale's homepage. You can find her there and amongst the staff. So I really recommend you try to get a hold of her if you want any more information about how they've implemented the education transformation framework. But thank you, Hannah. I'm going to go ahead and continue about the criteria, and then we'll move on from there. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good day. Well, I'm going to talk a bit more about the road to becoming a showcase school and some of the criteria that Hannah talked about. So bringing the framework back up, we can see again, we had those four key areas in that. And the first stage is a commitment to transform. I know we've had some people in the chat mentioned about becoming a showcase school, but that leadership vision, which means SLT, and Hannah touched on this as well, is making sure that the top down approach really is there and there's a commitment. Now, what Microsoft does is once you apply, you can become what's called a Microsoft Incubator School. That means you get the time with your senior leadership and your school leaders to embark on this multi-year journey. It's not something that anyone expects to be done overnight. In fact, during that incubator process, you can get in touch with a global training partner such as Aspire to Be if you need help to inputting these aspects, I should say, of the framework into place and helping you get in touch with not only us, but also with other schools and colleges who have made the most of the framework currently, before and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, a commitment to culture of learning and growth. As we heard from Hannah and at Cardiff and Vale, many educators have used the Microsoft Educator Center. They become MIEs, Microsoft Innovative Educators, and you need to have at least 25% of those educators. And again, this is why that incubator process is so important, so you can have that time to build up your school's portfolio. Those of you that are attending or viewing the recording of today's Showcase School Insight will be getting an MIE code at the end of the webinar today, and you will become a Microsoft Innovative Educator for watching our webinar today. We also are going to give you a chance to become a certified MCE, which is another portion here on the criteria for showing culture of learning and growth. So Microsoft certified educators and also MIE experts amongst the staff. And then we're taking a look at personalized learning and inclusion. I think we can see that Cardiff and Vale really has that approach to making sure all students' needs and the focus is on realizing their potential. Again, that focus on the pedagogy first and the technology second. And the head start that Cardiff and Vale had was they had that plan in place already, but it's never too late. And it's always a great time to get started with that to make sure that is constantly evolving. Future ready skills, showing that you're developing students future ready skills with an access to STEM activities, also working technology in and out of the classroom. And then the data drives the decisions. So that data from whether it's auditing your staff or from your students, what type of access to devices that staff and students have, as well as what is being used currently. And then there's a solutions impact. Is Teams, is Office 365 being used? Also, are Windows 10 devices being used? Because those are really the keys to making the most out of any solution as a Microsoft Showcase school. Well, there's quite a few Showcase schools around the world. And as you can see in the UK, there's pretty much on almost the top there with 57. And as you can see, I guess a group as together in the Western Africa has 82. However, for the size, I think UK percentage-wise has the most. And now all of these Showcase schools are in contact, and I'm going to talk a bit more about how you're supported along the path to becoming a Showcase school and after you become a Showcase school. So what does that support look like? Well, like we talked about earlier, once you apply, and I'll show you the application process in just a moment. Once you apply to become a Showcase school, you start off as an incubator school. Again, that's to build up and get your staff and that commitment to the education transformation framework put into practice. And as Hannah said, you still have that total autonomy for how your school wants to implement that based on your school's needs and your improvement plans. But once you have decided to do that, you will get support, which is capacity building for leaders and teachers. You'll get digital transformation guidance from global training partners such as Aspire to Be, and access to resources and research, product support, and offers and opportunities. And on top of that, you'll get recognition from Microsoft themselves on the website, social media, and events. Once you become a Showcase school, you'll get a banner and certificate to be able to show that status. And then also, you'll be provided with quick start guides to use, as Hannah said, to show through social media, your digital assets, and also to promote your school to acquire and attract new and competent staff. And then the impact will also be shared, and you can also contribute to other schools who are looking to go down the Showcase school path once you have gained that recognition. And last but not least is the community that you'll be involved in. So as an incubator school, you'll be a part of a community that are working towards Showcase school. But once you have achieved that status, you'll be a part of an exclusive community of Showcase school leaders online. You'll be able to share insights and best practices. And just like Hannah said, they're constantly looking to learn and get help from other school leaders as well, and then leverage those ideas and the feedback. And then lastly, you can engage in local, national, and international Microsoft online and in-person events. At the moment, those are all going to be online, of course, but as I think Hannah said about E2 and also this year. But the good thing is you'll be able to have access to all the resources and support. So if you're looking to get started and to delve in even more with the transformation using the ETF, there is a course specifically made on the Microsoft Educator Center for school leaders to take a look. It goes into what we've covered today, and then it goes into transforming your particular school in your particular area, and also how you would approach that. Okay. Now, every step of the way, how does this work with becoming a Showcase school? Well, if you contact us, we can get you started as a Microsoft Global Training Partner. This would be, of course, online support, and we would also get you through that process and show you how to become first an incubator school. And then we would go along the path of making sure we review your capabilities and making sure that you have everything you need to get started. And then once you are going down that pathway and you decided to start implementing the ETF, the Education Transformation Framework, we would make sure that your teaching professional development is in order with the Microsoft Educator Center and also Aspire Ed, which I'll go into more in detail in just a moment. Both of these platforms will help your staff become trained on using Office 365, Microsoft education tools. And then also making sure that they have the relevant badges and certifications, starting with their MIE badge, which you'll get today for attending the webinar. So Microsoft Innovative Educator. So here are the pathways. As you can see, I've got some QR codes. So if you're watching this live or on a recording, feel free to scan those QR codes to go to those websites. The first one is applying for the Microsoft Incubator School, which is the first path to becoming a Showcase school. So you'd register, and And once you've done that and you're accepted as incubator school, then we'd go through the process of enacting the education transformation framework. And again, you can contact us if you have any information or want more details about that. Then the next step is getting your staff involved with professional development. Now, as Hannah talked about at Cardiff and Vale, they have quite a few Microsoft Innovative Educator experts. But before they can get that annual certification, I should say, you'd have to become a Microsoft Innovative Educator. And that's step number one, which you can get done today. I want to talk a bit about Aspire Ed, which is Aspire to Be's learning platform, which houses many Microsoft education courses. And because you're watching the webinar today, you will receive a 50% course voucher. You can get that from our website as well, very easily from the registration page. But Aspire Ed is a true embodiment of digital empowerment for your schools. And why is that? Well, number one, all of the courses on Aspire were developed by educators for educators. All the staff at Aspire to Be and Aspire Ed have all been educators, from head teachers to ALN experts. And all these courses were created by them. And the value and the cost effectiveness of these courses is very accessible anytime, anywhere. The targeted content of the courses highlights the right tools, and we pride ourselves to making sure there's something practical that you can use as a teacher right away. The wide appeal of all of the videos is set to make sure that we can aim it to every educator in every phase of education. In fact, we have schools using Aspire Ed from primary all the way to colleges at the moment. It's pedagogically focused. And again, this is something that Hannah touched on earlier, making sure that that is emphasized and it reflects the real world of teaching and learning in every video. And digital portfolios, again, going towards professional development. Educators that use Aspire Ed can gain digital badges from every course they take and also build that digital profile to show progress. And then there's evidencing. So if your school, as a whole school, subscribes to Aspire Ed, you'll be able to track and monitor progress by key stages, by departments, or as a whole school, and then build that into your performance management. And all of the courses, since Aspire to Be are global training partners with Microsoft, can help your staff to become Microsoft Innovative Educators. The courses are future-proof as well. All of the courses in the library continue to expand, with more coming out even this week, and existing courses are updated free. Okay, and they reflect those changes constantly. And then the expertise, the opportunities to book strategy and support calls with us, Aspire to Be, and our expert learning technologists. And in this case, if your school decides to become an incubator school on the way to becoming a showcase school, we'll be there to help support your SLT, as we have former SLT members on our staff, and help to put it into practice and help with that SIP process. So what's next? Well, if you've watched the webinar today and you want to get even more information about becoming a showcase school or implementing the education transformation framework, we will have an Elevation ETF workshop on the 13th of October. That is available for registration now on our website. And as well, you might want to check out our Microsoft education courses on Aspire Ed, which we just talked about at aspireed.online. And there is a 50% off for all people who are registered to watch the webinar. As always, stay in contact with the large group of educators in the UK using Microsoft Education, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Once you join and take a look at what's going on, you'll easily make contacts and be able to share and gain best practices and resources to help you deliver some exceptional lessons and to get you started on your path. If you're already a Microsoft Innovative Educator, definitely will help you along the path to become an expert. If you have any questions about the program, please contact Microsoft at educommunityuk@microsoft.com. If you are a school interested in becoming a showcase school, or you're decided you do want to go on that path, contact us at Aspire to Be at info@aspiretobe.eu. Or always go back and you can take a look at my contacts and contact me, Dean, and I will do my best to make sure we get you contacted and started right away. Last but not least, I will be sending out evaluation forms, and as we said earlier, we'll be randomly choosing educators that turn in the feedback form to get a free voucher to take their Microsoft Certified Educator exam. As Hannah alluded to earlier, this exam is more about pedagogy than the actual technology. It does ask about those technologies, but it really is pedagogically based. If you want more information about the exam, please contact me, as well as the voucher will not expire right away. So if you are studying or you plan to take it later, it'd be good to have it and use it when you're ready. I want to thank you for watching today and thank those of you that are watching the recording. Please stay in touch and don't be shy about asking us any questions you have about the process or about the education transformation framework. Maybe you want more information before getting started, or maybe you're ready to apply to become an incubator school on the path to becoming a full-fledged showcase school. But I want to thank everyone from all of us at the Aspire to Be team. And if you have any questions, like I said, please contact us here at Aspire to Be. We'll be happy to talk to you and get you started. But from all of us here, thank you very much. Have a good day and stay safe.